Torpedoes, los!
Torpedoes running. High-speed propellers coming in from port side.
So within the war movie genre lives the subgenre of the naval/submarine movie. And there's a fair few decent ones. Amongst my favourites are The Hunt for Red October, Run Silent, Run Deep, Crimson Tide, which shares a few similarities with this film, and of course 1981's mega epic Das Boot, which is probably the godfather of naval battle movies. But just recently I've discovered this little gem, 1957's The Enemy Below. Now this film exists in a subgenre, excuse the pun, one which is more focused on the battles of wits between two brave, proud and professional commanders, each out to defeat the other while still maintaining a great level of respect for one another. Let's take a look. So The Enemy Below is a World War II film about an American captain played by Robert Mitchum, who in his Buckley-class destroyer escort ship is hunting down a German sub in a deadly game of sea chess. The U-boat lurking below them is commanded by proud German captain played by Kurt Jürgens. Now the American crew of the USS Haynes are initially sceptical of their new leader, Captain Morrill, but they soon start coming round when he shows off some invaluable knowledge when they pick up a U-boat on the sonar, and more impressed still by his careful and calculated tactics as he sets about hunting the sub.
Who's the senior radarman, Andrews?
That's me, sir.
All right, then you'll have to track the target for us. Any turn he makes, any change in speed, no matter how small, don't you miss one move.
I'll stick on him. Don't you worry, Captain.
All right, I won't.
So meanwhile, below the surface and aboard the U-boat is weary but brave war veteran von Stolberg, who's Morrill's tactical equal, and so commences that game of cat and mouse as they try to outsmart each other across the South Atlantic.
Your Zoom calls 140.
140. 140.
Yes. He's on the hook, Captain. He's coming back to course 140.
So one of the great things about The Enemy Below is that we spend almost as much time aboard the German sub as we do with the American ship. And although part of the Nazi war machine, the German captain patriotically fights for Germany and not the Führer. So this gives him a little bit more character depth than just being the usual cinematic nasty Nazi. And I also suppose lets us sympathise with him slightly come the tense final act of the film.
But there's no honour in this war. Memories will be ugly even if we win. And if we die without God.
So Kurt Jürgens in his first American movie plays the role perfectly, coming across as tired of war and disheartened by his country's descent into Nazism, but also as a strong leader whose primary focus is the safety of his men. Jürgens is probably best known as Bond's nemesis Stromberg in 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me. So Robert Mitchum, of course, is equally great. He makes full use of that commanding screen presence and comes into his own when having to calmly deliver his orders and observations to a nervous crew, slowly gaining their trust.
I want you all to get as much rest as you can. Stand easy at your stations, but be ready every time we lunge. It's going to be a long, dull job, but it's a damn sight worse for the Germans. We'll begin the routine at 1500.
Hi, I'm Stephen at Real Classic Film Reviews. Drop a like on the video if you are a fan of films like this 1950s war movie, and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more classic film reviews. Things that's relatively unique for The Enemy Below was that much of it was shot almost on location, with the Pacific Ocean doubling for the South Atlantic. This provides the film with some genuinely stunning visuals. As opposed to some of the ropey rear projection effects common at the time, it's great to have that feeling of actually being on board the ship. There's some amazing shots showing the impact of depth charges as huge, ferocious plumes of water soar into the sky. And overall, there's just a genuine sense that these guys are actually out on the open seas and not on a Hollywood set. The submarine effects are fine for the time. The film actually won an Oscar for Best Special Effects, in fact, but the interior sets used in the U-boat in this film do give it a much more spacious and tidy look than what would have been the case at the time, with the boats at that time being massively cramped and confined. Again, later films such as Das Boot would probably show this more accurately, but it makes sense here in terms of practical filmmaking at the time. So another thing that works in its favour is that the enemy below doesn't try to be more complex than it really needs to be. It really is just a series of tactical manoeuvres by two captains, both attempting to second guess the other and often coming to a stalemate. We don't need to cut back to land or get involved in anything other than what's happening between the two boats, and it's more than enough. It's not the longest film, and it spends just the right amount of time with each group of men to make you appreciate the stakes at hand and to provide adequate character depth. So The Enemy Below was directed by actor turned filmmaker Dick Powell. Powell starred in over 70 films but went on to direct only 6 before he moved into TV work. It's a bit of a shame really, as this was not only his best film but also one of the best of the genre. By all accounts, a few different endings of the film were shot with test audiences deciding on the one we get to see here. Although it does feature just a thin sliver of cheese running through it, it is satisfying and probably the right finale based on everything we've just seen. So with two great actors going head to head in an exciting, electrifying atmosphere, regardless of whether we're aboard the Haynes or below on the U-boat, this is more of an intelligent, gripping war movie than a gung-ho, flag-waving action fest. And yeah, there's the odd scene that's clearly lifted from newsreels and some of the ships are models, but that can't detract from The Enemy Below being a good old CinemaScope classic. Go check it out.